Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's midday Western U.S. regional forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, here's the results of those deep upper-level lows that have been spinning off the west coast of California. We're looking here at the last 7 days of total accumulated precipitation, and much of California received some desperately needed rainfall with some big snows in the mountains. And I want to talk about that mountain snow to get us started here, because we can see, looking at the MRMS data, that we were in excess of 6+ inches of liquid equivalent, not only here in the Sierra, but look at the heavier precipitation amounts down here along the coast in parts of Southern California. Big time rainfall coming through, getting all the way to the valley floor here, and many folks out there are desperate for some of this rainfall. Now, while this is correcting some of the lack of precipitation we've had over the last 2 months, we got to be careful. It'd be great to make up that full deficit, but we have to do it slowly, otherwise we will increase our flooding threat with time. But take a look at these snow numbers. Basin average snow water content, so we're looking at the percent of average. This was back on March the 9th. You saw numbers here in the reporting stations in the Sierra Nevadas sitting in the 40 to 50% range. Here are the new numbers as of yesterday. Almost each station, every station here has gone up at almost 10%, and we're looking to add quite a bit more to this, because over the next week, this just gets us out to next Tuesday morning. We do have multiple systems coming through, the second of which has the potential for really piling up the snow here in the Sierra Nevada. And then again, widespread rainfall getting all the way down to the valley here, and we're going to see the continuation of making up the deficit we've seen over the last 2.5 months here. Meanwhile, the Northwest is going to miss out a lot of this. In fact, you're going to see relatively dry days coming up here for parts of the Pacific Northwest. But in terms of snowfall, let's just get those numbers in before we see some of the details. Next few systems that come through, models are pretty eager to put down 3+ feet of snow at the highest peaks here in the Sierra Nevada. And you can see Northern California really getting hammered here with some heavy snows. Those heavy snows extend into the Intermountain West because each of these cutoff lows, which comes right into this area, slide through this area. They're not coming down like they were into the Pacific Northwest, where you see much less snowfall in this area. Instead, they're sliding in through the south. I'm going to show you the details here in a few moments. But I can't wait to see this image once we get our next clear day. So this was back, March 13th, and we were looking down on these mountains here in the northern Sierra Nevada range and getting into the northern California ranges, and we just couldn't see much snow except for on the very highest peaks. Well, it'll be interesting to see next clear day what all that looks like, so I'll be sure to show you that as soon as it comes through. Now, one of the things I'll be discussing in long-range outlook, in tomorrow's long-range outlook, is going to be this. We see the behavior of the Pacific jet stream really coming off of Japan, but splitting up into several waves. You see them all right in through here. There's a second cutoff low over Hawaii. But in general, the jet stream's trending to break into two pieces. One to the north and one to the south, which it does normally. But the question is, how long do we keep these waves bunched up in this area? Because they keep coming into California, which has been good for precipitation. Is there any change happening here? Is there any change happening over Alaska? We're going to have to watch that very, very carefully, and I'll address it in tomorrow's long-range update. Because I've noticed that the latest projections of the behavior of the East Pacific Oscillation. Now, what is that? Well, in a nutshell, if it's down here below the zero line, we're talking about big ridges over Alaska. Well, what we notice is it's kind of just very systematically and evenly increasing in value back up toward neutral. Now, sometimes this is just due to the models kind of washing out the pattern, and that may be the case here. I'm going to have to investigate it, but I think there's actually something bigger afoot here, and I'm going to be discussing it tomorrow. I think it has to do a lot with the interplay between the Arctic troposphere and the Arctic stratosphere. We're going to talk about that, like I said, again tomorrow. But in the meantime, over the next 10 days, we can see where the wet anomalies are here. The dry air pushing up here, kind of in general, remember that flow is doing something like this, right? And with each of those systems kind of cutting into California, still keeping things wetter than average across a big section of the United States, and it all starts here in California. So with that, let's now go over to the operational models here, and I apologize for all the noise upstairs. As you all know, we're home quarantined, and apparently my children are doing gymnastics while I'm recording this morning. But anyways, let's talk some European model. As we get this playing forward, let's pause it there and draw it back and see the next system pulling through. Here we are Tuesday morning. getting into Tuesday afternoon and evening. So our main low pressure cell still bringing a lot of precipitation into California. We do have winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories out for Northern California, stretching down through the Sierra Nevada here. As we press this out from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, the main low pressure cell is still sitting down here just off the Baja of California and is soon to eject, as you see here, into Arizona. Still on the backside, we could get flow from the other direction, piling up the snow on the eastern facing slopes here for the Sierra Nevada. Now after that, what we're going to watch here is this is getting through Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon and evening, now getting us into Friday morning. So what do we see in general? Just widespread light snow during that time period. Notice during this whole of this time period, the Pacific Northwest has been on the drier side of things. And the next systems that are coming through, see them almost stacked here? Look at this, north-south, Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. Now, the northern cell, as I walk you back, is going to kick the southern cell into California pretty quickly. See it right there. Pushes that out ahead, starts to see by Saturday evening more precipitation encroaching on the west coast. But as we pull into the weekend, this is now Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon and evening, look at the snows we're anticipating piling up here by Sunday evening. That whole time period, much of the Pacific Northwest relatively dry. As we work our way into Monday morning, now we have the combination of the first two systems hitting California and a second low coming over the top here hitting the Northwest, which means the start of next week, next Monday morning, Monday afternoon and evening for the whole of the West Coast and the interior, deep low pressure system kind of combined together, very windy conditions, snow at high elevation, heavier rain in the valley floor. We can see this lasts. Look, I'm out to Tuesday afternoon and evening, getting into Wednesday, and we got a multi-day rainfall event beginning at the end of the weekend, going through middle of next week, including big snows at higher elevation. So that's what we're watching out for. This is a pretty active pattern. Like I said, though, Northwest, drier start, but then it all comes together over the weekend. So, let's go back here and take a look now at week 2 only. When we see that at week 2, we still notice the same features that we were discussing here. And those features include the flow coming into California. See this here? Getting into Intermountain West. But we need to question whether or not it's truly going to be dry in the Pacific Northwest for week 2. Because as I showed you all those waves bunched up here, I think we don't fully have this resolved yet into week 2 to understand exactly how the pattern's going to evolve in the Pacific Northwest. So stay tuned in Pacific Northwest. Because the operational GFS model in its ensemble wants to keep the Northwest near average to wetter than average. So I think we have something to be watching there. Okay, to finish this up, GFS ensemble on the left, European on the right. You see a very similar pattern here, but there are some subtle differences. What we will be discussing is if this pattern in the flow of the jet stream stays that way, or do we move this ridge back far enough that it allows for the whole pattern to evolve differently into the month of April. That's what we're going to be talking about tomorrow. To finish this up, I want to talk about temperatures. Starting off with departure from normal on Tuesday here, playing throughout this week, we can see that the whole of California generally about 10 to 15 degrees cooler than average, with much closer to average temperatures in parts of the Pacific Northwest, a little cool in the Columbia Basin here, and then where the snowpack is in parts of Montana, 10 to 15 degrees colder than average. As we see Wednesday's departure from normal, this might be the morning I'm going to watch very carefully in the Central Valley, especially down here in the San Joaquin, where we might be able to get temperatures in the middle 30s for lows, but we'll keep a close eye on it. I don't see a freezing temperature yet in the Central Valley of California. Getting into Thursday, same story. Friday, we just don't break away from these cooler temperatures as we progress through Saturday and into our weekend. We're going to hang on to the cooler bias with a return more toward normal in the Pacific Northwest toward the end of the week. Beyond that, let's just look at days 5 through 10. Again, California with the cloud cover and precipitation, it's hard to break away from the cooler pattern that extends over to the Four Corner states, especially as the ridge initially builds into Alaska. As we look out farther, though, this is what the pattern looks like day 10 through 15. Remember, increased cloud cover, overall troughing in the jet stream still keeps us on the cooler side of things. But my fear for having widespread damaging freezing temperatures at low elevation at this point is subsiding, which is a good thing. To finish up, I want to show you brand new long-range updates. Remember, we get these early in the morning on Tuesday and Friday, and we're looking at now only at the month of April. Now, my question will be about if this is truly coming in dry, but you can see the moisture axis moving through California here, and that is going to be good to continue this wetter pattern as we finish out our wet season and start to think about what spring and summer are going to look like for May, June, and July. All right. Temperatures, though, overall, much of the West is hanging on to that cooler bias. Not much colder than average, but a cooler bias. All right. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Have a great week. I look forward to giving that long-range update. Thank you.